Hey, Craig. So, actually, I wanted to start with just a basic question as far as placement of the Manipura. Like, it seems like I've seen in like Taoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism. I don't know. They seem to place it in different places. Like, I feel it in the soul, like like right where the rib cage sort of, like kind of the sternum area. Um, I don't know. Is that kind of
Yeah, so if we're speaking about the third chakra center, traditionally it tends to be below the heart, where the ribs come together, and
mhm.
traditionally it's called the solar plexus area.
Right,
Now,
right,
the chakra centers for different individuals, sometimes they're a little bit higher, sometimes they're a little bit lower. So the teacher may describe them a little bit differently, depending on where it's actually seated. Uh, Within the teacher. And so that may be why there's some discrepancy there,
right.
among teachers or lineages. So, yeah, so if we're speaking about the third chakra, it's the center right there, the solar plexus. And the key thing is not to worry about what the teacher says, but really to feel in your body and just notice, you know, what do you notice there? With any chakra center, there should be some feeling there. So for some people, it feels, it may feel just totally dormant, but it'll just have just a gentle like vibration there. It'll feel like a sense of a center there. For some people, it'll feel like a clenched fist, or there'll be burning heat there, or coolness, or what, or heat, or whatever it is. And so, what's important for you is when we're locating the centers, is just to feel. Notice, okay, like what's there?
Hmm.
What's happening there? Can I notice that there's, almost like just a bundle of energy? And for people who, the feeling is they feel kind of dead inside or numb, it's going to take a little bit of awareness to sit with it. And sometimes when you sit with it, what you'll notice is, it's just gently coming alive. And so many people, they might sit for like an hour or a couple hours, over a period of a week or something, focusing on their heart chakra, and then all of a sudden it starts to come online. They say, "Oh, that's my heart," "Oh, that's my third chakra."
No.
There it is.
Hmm.
And so, it can be confusing for people who aren't sensitive or who aren't trained in tuning into that particular center. So, but today, I think you said you have the questions around the third chakra center. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, what are your questions specifically?
Yeah, well, specifically, it's regarding the sense of victimhood and empowerment. I'm kind of becoming aware of both of them. So I don't know. I guess if we could just start with, like, yeah, what's really burning right now is sort of the empowerment aspect of it. And what I'm noticing is that it's, I mean, it's kind of it feels like an egoic empowerment right now. Just kind of like this separate me trying to manage the universe. That's kind of what's been coming out of this chakra center, and it's, yeah, the heat of the chakra center as well, like on a tactile sensation. But the thoughts are, how do I control the world? You know.
Yeah, that's well said. And so let me feel into that for a moment here. When I was speaking in satsang, we talked about this sense of, the chakra can be dormant. That's one way. And then for a lot of people, they just live in that way. They just kind of have this sleepiness, and they just live from their mental reality or their emotional reality, and then all the chakras are dormant. But when they start to come, awake or alive, you may notice the different ways in which they come alive. And so, like, the first way they come alive is, in a developmental sphere. It can come alive in an animalistic way. So if you feel into the third chakra, there tends to be a really intense fight or flight response there. If you ever get yourself in trouble or you're staring over a cliff, sometimes you feel you're, like this sinking, in your solar plexus, then it goes, sinks down even deeper into your second chakra, down into the hara center there.
Hmm.
And so, there
Like
could be that.
cold chill, like that. It's like a cold chill that kind of runs down.
Exactly. Yeah. That cold chill kind of feeling, or like take your breath away. If you've ever gotten in a fight, and, when I was a little boy in middle school, my friends, used to pick on me. And so I can remember one recess when, that chakra center just came alive, and there was just this burning intensity there. And so there was this need, like you were describing, to egoically assert myself. And then I found myself, on top of one of my friends, just, beating the hell out of him and wrestling, and then the other friends jumping in and, harassing me. And it was just like this funny thing. But when I had awareness of that part of my body, there was like this burning heat, especially in the third center and in the second center. And so the fight or flight response had kicked in those two chakras. And I was responding, of course, in an animal way. And, that was may even been appropriate at the time, because I had been bullied so much, that year, when I really reflect upon it. And so the first thing that comes online is that animal nature part of it. And then, what we work with in the world of psychology, is what we call empowerment. It's like healthy egoic empowerment. And so healthy egoic empowerment, you see this a lot, especially in the year 2018. There's, couples will get together and they'll tell you, well, it's like you feel in your belly and you say, I want to tell you, honey, how I'm feeling, and this is what's important to me. And, when you're speaking in this way, oftentimes you'll feel like a burning heat in the solar plexus, and then sometimes even lower in the second chakra area. And that burning heat, that's the will coming alive. And so in a very human way, when we're developing and we're learning to be an adult in the world, we develop this thing called healthy egoic empowerment. And then there's all these sense of like, wanting to control, wanting to dominate. And then there's, like this super ego aspect to it of like, okay, well, how do I do this in a healthy adult way instead of just being, a dominating jackass or whatever. And if you see, someone like, maybe our current president, he works from this place of like, this bullying energy in the third chakra. Is he kind of just like steamrolling over people. So that's unhealthy, unhealthy egoic development. And then you move it into that empowerment sector. But it's necessary, as human beings, because we're developmental and evolutionary beings, is we have to go through all these stages of development. You can't just go from, the chakra center being completely dormant, to being, that center being awake and fully empowered in a divine way. You can't skip the steps of, of ego development. If people try to skip the steps, they tend to develop a shadow there. And, they may have, like this sweetness about them and this powerful, ability to manifest things. But then, you see like the example of like gurus who all of a sudden they're having angry fits. It's because they didn't have the healthy ego development. They didn't know how to fully work with the energy. They skipped steps. They just went from dormant to fully awake. And they didn't do the developmental steps. And so it's important to do the developmental steps. So I'm glad you brought that forward, that you're noticing that's happening within you. And so if we look at, the chakra center, it revolves around will and willpower. And so we're evolving out of like just animal instinctual will into human will, and a human will that's, say, rational and it's thoughtful and it's mindful. And you see this all the time, especially in modern spirituality. It's like, okay, I'm choosing to be mindful now, and I'm going to be, it's like, it's kind of humorous because it's all done from, most mindfulness teachings are done from a place of superego. They're not done from a place of true heart. They're trying to control their reality and be the best human beings so that they get kind of the outcome that they want. But that's a step forward. And so as we evolve out of that, we have to trust and let go. And what we're letting go is into divine will. And the doorway, out of human will and into divine will, the doorway is through this funny dance called victim consciousness. Because to really let go of that sense of wanting to be in control, you have to trust that what you're letting go into is good. You have to trust that what you're letting go into is divine. And so for most people, when they come to this doorway and they see this thing, they're like, oh my gosh, I have to let go of my ego. I have to let go of this ego that I've just spent the last 5 years reading self-help books and developing it in a real healthy way. I went to all these mindfulness classes and, I know how to do the dance, and I have a really strong spiritual superego, a really strong, healthy psychological ego. And it's really started to work for me in my life, and I'm empowered and I'm making money and I feel good about myself. And then the question is are you willing to let go of that? And for most people, it's a terrifying endeavor. It's terrifying. Because we're saying, oh, why would I let go of something that works? Why would I let go of my healthy sense of control? And we start having all these visions of like, if I do let go, God won't support me. I'll be homeless. I'll be stuck on the street. I'll say the wrong thing. It really brings up this question of, do I actually know that God is here? Do I actually know that God loves me? Loves me personally. Not in just some non-dual way. A lot of non-dual people, they miss this. A lot of non-dual teachers miss this. They try to create this grand equality of everything's just equal and there is no God and there's, it's just like it's spaciousness and silence, and that's what it's all about. But really, when we do that, we're just kind of latching on to a philosophy and a dogma. We're not really asking this question of, is there a God? And am I actually supported? Do I actually know I'm going to be okay if I let go? And so what you're being asked, what's being asked of you, what's being asked of anyone at this stage of development is, can I let go of this idea of me against life, which is what victim consciousness is. There's me and I need to guard and defend myself because I don't really fully believe in God. And can I step into this realm where I know God is true? I know God is real. I know she loves me. I know she'll take care of me. I know there's an intelligent force running this universe. And I'm even going to use this word. And this intelligent force is personalized. And by that, I mean she cares about me. She cares about me. And so, yes, of course, there is this other God that's vast, that's absolute. I mean, it's all one God who's totally impersonal. But for you to let go in this arena, especially the third chakra, you have to know that you'll be taken care of. And for most of us, this is a great gamble. A great gamble. You may all of a sudden, be refacing some of these money issues. You may have a change of career. You may have to sit with this question of what's actually true in my heart. Because when we look at will also, with the third chakra, has so much to do with our vocation in the world. And so we may say, okay, I've been doing this one job. Like if we're going to talk about, say, being an actor, a lot of actors are, they're waiters or waitresses. They have a second job or maybe a third job and they go to the auditions. And you may get a part. And then the question is do I trust that it's okay to let go of my day job and to step fully into this? To step fully into this. Is it okay for me to let go fully And will I be supported? And if I do fall on my face, am I going to blame God and say, oh, see, God didn't give me exactly what I wanted. He didn't give me the part I wanted in $1 million right away. Oh, this is bullshit. Therefore, God does not exist. Or are we willing to still step forward and continue to look at this question? Is it true I'm a victim? Or is it true that I'm one with God? And if I'm one with God, what is God's will? What is His will? Am I willing to accept it? What is her will? Am I willing to let go into this will? Am I willing to trust, even if it's difficult? Even if it's difficult. And so the more you trust and walk forward in the light, which means you are listening to the truth of your heart, not the truth of your ego. Because the truth of your ego will say, oh, I need to do this because this is what's wise and this is what's worked. And if it truly is wise, well, of course, it's like, let's do it. But there's like wisdom that comes from our rational mind and our rational will. But then there's prajna, which is the true wisdom of the heart. Am I willing to listen to the true wisdom of the heart, which says, go this way. Go this way. This is the truth. And when you feel that, you'll feel like this thing of like, where you're sitting at a gambling table, like you're playing blackjack or whatever. And it's like, okay, I know I have a good hand here. Am I willing to put all my money on it? Am I willing to jump in fully? And you'll start to feel that chakra center burn. You may feel the ground, start to feel like it's falling out from under your feet. You may turn pale in the face and say like, oh shit. But if you're, crazy like me, I just say, fuck it. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to jump in. And see, this is the real big moment when God is looking at us and saying, are you going to continue being a child, living from victim consciousness? Or are you ready to fully jump in? Fully jump into my heart. Knowing that when you do, you're going to do nothing but burn up. Burn up in this light. Burn up in this grace. Burn up in this absolute divinity. Are you willing to submit and surrender to me fully? And the great joke is when you fully surrender to God, you fully surrender to her, what you are ultimately surrendering to is the truth of your will. Because your will and her will are one will. Her intelligence and your intelligence are one intelligence. Her heart and your heart is one heart. And so this is the grand moment where we say, okay, am I willing to fully step onto the battlefield without any armor? Without any armor. And it is absolutely exhilarating, frightening, and terrifying all at once. But the more you jump into it, then there's just this radical sense of feeling alive in the world. It literally feels like, yes, you're free falling. But you have absolute trust. You have absolute faith that, oh, look, I'm totally out. But yeah, it'll make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. But the more you let go into it, you look back at your old way of being, you say, fuck, like I never want to be asleep at the wheel anymore because that's a hell realm. That old thing where you thought you were in control and, we're always micromanaging your experience and, fighting with life and being a victim of life. Eventually that just burns out and you just feel radically alive and awake. And it's thrilling. And the idea of you and God being separated, that just falls away. It falls away. And so it's a huge way to live. The price to pay is, you know, it's seemingly huge. But when you really jump into it, you realize, oh, that was a small price for what I'm getting in return. I'm getting all of life. You know, it's like paying a couple pennies, receiving the universe. And so anyways, I spoke a lot. I didn't know if you had any more questions around that or.
God, I feel like I'm going to throw up. This is a big challenge. It feels like still, and the whole. But no, I at the same time, you know, like you've challenged me before to trust deeper and deeper, and I was held that time. So.
Well, and that's the great question here. It's like, are you a spiritual man? Are you a spiritual warrior? Or do you want to hang out with the status quo? But when you step onto the battlefield, you know, that ego will come forward, your chakra center, that old way of being, and you'll feel that. You'll feel like, oh yeah, I could vomit. You'll feel that burning heat. You know, so often people are so confused about the spiritual path. They think that the spiritual path is you just sit there in yoga class and you sip tea and it's, you know, I never had that thought. You know, the day I met my teacher, I realized all that other stuff was bullshit. He just looked directly at me and yeah, I was terrified of him. Terrified of my teacher's presence. And simultaneously, I knew he had absolute love for me. And so I was able to trust and walk forward. And that's the big thing, is like we have to gently remind our ego every now and then. It's like, hey, we're letting go into God. We're letting go into our true nature. I'm not saying it'll be easy, but we have to give ourselves a reality check every now and then, because our ego's like, oh, you know, I'm going to lose control. I'm going to die. You know, it's like, yeah, but, you know, it's like your adolescence died. Was that a terrible thing? It's like, hell no. It's like, I don't want to be a middle school boy anymore. I'm happy to go into high school. I'm happy to go to college. I'm happy to grow into adulthood. It's like with any of these things, we don't want to hold on to, you know, it's like, do you want your computer from 10 years ago? It's like, hell no, that thing is slow. It doesn't work. It doesn't have the right kind of memory or RAM or whatever it is. It's like, it becomes obsolete. And so we're letting go into an upgrade. Into an upgrade. And so when your ego comes forward and you feel that burning, you feel like you want to vomit, you know, that's a good moment just to come into the present moment and just gently say, I'm going to take a deep breath and I'm going to remember, I'm going to smile. I'm letting go into God. You know, I can't tell you how many times I turned pale, you know, on the spiritual path. I would just sit in my teacher's presence and I just turned pale and feel this burning heat. I wanted to puke on my shoes. You know, people are like, oh my God, like, that's not good. Like, no, that's the ego burning up. That's really good. But see, when you live in victim consciousness, you gauge everything based on the pain-pleasure principle. If it feels good, okay, that means it is good. If it feels bad, I need to run. But it's like, do you want to run from God? Do you want to run from spiritual awakening? Or do you want to run into it? If you run into it, you will burn up in the light. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. We're talking about enlightenment here. We are burning up in the light. That's what we're doing here. That's what we're doing. And so this is the great invitation, you know, is to step forward into this, to fully open into this. But yes, it takes great faith, great trust.
Yeah. Currently, the trust that I'm having some trouble coming into is, well, God's not telling me to do a damn thing right now. I'm spending a lot of time at home, you know, just sitting. You know, there are no moves that I'm really making. And yeah, I feel like that's another aspect to it. You know, just can I trust? Yeah, that maybe just here is where I need to be. That maybe, you know, yeah, I don't need to be going out and finding, you know, another audition, or, you know, yeah, to emailing my agent or manager. Um, but I don't know if there's
Yeah,
a question.
it's that willingness to trust your heart. You know, not to ask your ego, what should I be doing? You know, that's that sense of wanting to control and, you know, trying to be a good, healthy adult and all that. And that's, you know, it's okay. It's wise to be a good, healthy adult. But the question here is, can you trust your heart? So if your heart tells you to sit, you sit. You know, there was many years when my heart told me, I said, what should I do? Just sit. Just stay right here. Right here. Just sit. Continue sitting. Continue studying with your teacher. You know, I spent 20 years with my teacher. You know, I had many friends that would come and go and disappear, and, you know, they ran this way and that way and chased this thing and that thing. And the voice within me said, just sit. Just sit. And so sometimes this is the ultimate truth, is just to sit here. Sit here. Yeah, so thank you. That was a beautiful question. And this is what we all go through on the path. We go through many of these doorways. And so much of it comes down to is, are you willing to trust? Are you willing to let go into God, into life, into true spiritual awakening? Or do you want to just stay, you know, stay in your normal, everyday, egoic consciousness? Are you willing to take this leap of faith? And so I can feel the truth in you. That's what's brought you here. And so the great question is, can you listen to this truth and walk forward in the light? So beautiful. So thank you for showing up in such a humble and vulnerable way. This is exactly, my friend, what's required.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for sitting with me. It's been fantastic.
Yeah, of course.